You see somebody sexy, tell them, hey, hey, sexy citizens, and welcome back to the Leo Dotson Show. Today I want to talk to you about something that's happened this week that I think is kind of important, and that is Standard & Poor's, credit rating agency, downgrade of the U.S. government's credit rating. Now, first of all, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone other than me that is as frustrated with the amount of debt that we've run up. I mean, think about it. Back in 1999, we actually had a debt surplus. We were taking in more money than we were spending. And I'm very frustrated, as I'm sure most Americans are, with the amount of debt that we've accumulated over the last 11, 12 years. We now have the largest debt in the history of the world. But we also have the largest budget in the history of the world, so that kind of goes without saying. I'm also very frustrated at the lack of cooperation that I see in Washington, D.C. on our legislators actually working together to solve the debt. Yeah, that's frustrating. And I'm sure it's frustrating for all of us. However, that doesn't reduce the credit worthiness of our country and our government. I mean, let's calm down and think about a couple of things here. First of all, last time I checked, yes, we are in an economic downturn. But the entire world is in an economic downturn. And last time I checked, the largest economy on planet Earth, the strongest economy on planet Earth, is still what? Yep, the U.S. Secondly, the U.S. government, although they don't always make the most intelligent decisions and frustrate most of us citizens, they still have the largest amount of wealth of any government on planet Earth. And thirdly, think about it, of any entity, any government who would have the ability to go out and get the money they need to make good on their debts, who would it be besides the U.S.? I mean, come on. All right? So, even though we may be frustrated, to downgrade the creditworthiness of the strongest economy and the strongest, largest government on earth to something, anything less than the highest level is absolutely asinine. I mean, really, S&P, this is the same rating agency that gave high marks to mortgage-backed securities as they turned into junk bonds, and Americans lost millions and millions, billions of dollars in their hard-earned dollars and investments because of the lack of downgrading or proper rating by this agency. They're also the same agency that ranked Fannie Mae with a high credit rating as the government had to come in and bail them out. They also ranked Lehman Brothers, which is now defunct and bankrupt, a high credit rating until 1 month before bankruptcy. So how much credibility does S&P actually have? In fact, although I'm not going to blame the downturn on S&P, I can't help but think it was worsened because they had all these high credit ratings on these horrible entities that Americans poured billions of their hard-earned dollars into. That had to exacerbate the situation we're in now. And lastly, if you look at the same day that this credit rating came out, they talked to former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, who said, and I quote, "I see absolutely zero reason, zero justification in downgrading the U.S. government's credit policies." Now, if you think about what happened that very day, this S&P downgrade caused a panic in U.S. stock markets and had one of the top 5 strongest sell-offs, down days in U.S. history. And what were they doing when they were selling out of all those securities, dumping all those stocks, and taking their money to a safe haven? Where was that money flying to? Well, one was gold. On a much larger level, they were buying, guess what? U.S. Treasuries. Debt backed up by the U.S. government. How ironic is that? I mean, Alanis Morissette should be checking this out. I mean, here you have S&P downgrading a credit agency, or the credit worthiness, excuse me, of the U.S. government. And what do people do? Get rid of private corporate stocks that are public, but, you know, private corporations, and buying credit and debt backed up by the U.S. government. Which brings me to my final point. The only credit worthiness downgrade that I see needs to happen is Standard & Poor's.